Board meeting here in Visalia. I think it's incredibly important. I've been spending a lot of time in the Central Valley, and there is such incredible unmet need here. It's vitally important that the Democratic Party pay attention and help make sure we serve every part of the state. One of my first campaign visits here, I have to tell you, I did a number of roundtables, and then one of the local right-wing stations sent a camera crew, and one of the right-wing reporters asked what passes for journalism in the right wing these days. When he came up to me, he stuck a microphone in front of me and said, "Kevin McCarthy says you're a liar. What do you say about that?" To which I responded something along the lines of, "Well, I suppose coming from Kevin McCarthy, he intends that as some form of a compliment." But here's what I think is significant. There are thousands and thousands of people here who can't drink their own water. Because the aquifers are so depleted, they're sucking up manganese from the bottom. Because dairy farms have been flooded as a result of climate change, it's washing nitrates into the water supply. People are told, don't drink the water, don't bathe in the water. And you know something? Kevin McCarthy could care less. There are I second the nomination. There are thousands and thousands of people, I told this reporter, young people growing up with asthma because of the particulate matter in the air, and Kevin McCarthy is doing nothing about it. The hospital in Madera just shut down around the time I was there. It shut down just a couple months earlier. People by now have already died because they can't get access to a hospital on time. And he hasn't lifted a finger to get that hospital reopened. And if Kevin McCarthy won't represent his constituents in the House, I told this reporter, I'll represent them in the Senate.
Yeah!
So I am so glad that you're here. I want to take this opportunity, because we're kind of an intimate gathering, to tell you a little bit about myself, because you probably know me as the guy that impeached Donald Trump. Well, I'm proud to have led the investigation into Trump and to make his enemies list and to have impeached him, and I'm certainly very proud of the work we did on the January 6th committee, which has led to these indictments. I thought I would tell you a little bit about me in the pre-Trump era. So I'm originally from Boston. My father was a traveling salesman. He had a clothing line. And when I was a kid, his annual income was $18,000. And on the strength of that single income, my parents bought our first home for $18,000. And I think about that a lot, because imagine trying to buy a home for the annual income of a clothing salesman. And I think one of the most profound challenges that we face is that the economy is simply not working for millions of people. And I think when it isn't, then people start to be receptive to every demagogue who comes along promising that they alone can fix things. During the pandemic, I fought hard, along with many others, to more than double the child tax credit. And we did it. And the single impact of that was to lift 40% of the kids who are living in poverty in this country out of poverty. Now, a lot of those kids live right here in the Central Valley. In Merced alone, I think 40% of the families in Merced are living in poverty. But here's the thing, the Republicans wouldn't allow us to extend that expansion of the tax credit. And when it expired, those millions of families fell right back into poverty. And this should tell us something. It should tell us that some of the answers are not rocket science. They may be just a single change of a single tax code, but they can lift lots and lots of families out of poverty. Now, earlier this week, I spent time with SEIU 99 and with some of the child care workers. I did a sort of a day in the life of a child care provider who uses her home to provide child care. She loves her work. She loves the children in her care, but she also believes she should be paid a fair wage. She shouldn't have to, scrape and scrimp. Shouldn't have to feel guilty if she takes a day off. And I'm totally with her. We have focused a lot, and we need to, on the utter unaffordability of housing, but as women know too well, childcare is equally unaffordable. And that crisis has, of course, a much more disproportionate impact on women who can't join the workforce because they can barely earn enough in the workforce to pay for the child care.
Yep.
And this is one of the reasons why I'm introducing multiple bills on child care, to try to, I've got a bill that I introduced called the RAISE Act to raise compensation for child care providers. Another I'm working on to expand eligibility for Head Start. Yet another to provide greater tax incentives to employers to provide child care at places of employment. I'm really proud that during the first 2 years of the Biden administration, we did so much to invest in infrastructure. We passed a bipartisan infrastructure bill. But I would have been even more proud if the most massive investment in infrastructure we made was in human infrastructure, in things like child care. 1 minute. Okay. These are some of the things we need to do, but let me talk about one final reform that I've been a leader on in Congress that I think deeply affects women. And that is, I believe we need an enforceable code of ethics for the Supreme Court.
That's right.
We need term limits for the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And I'm one of the lead authors of a bill to expand the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
This is not a conservative court. This is a reactionary court that has rolled back reproductive freedom for millions and millions of Americans. That may be just the first right that will fall. And if we're going to do something about it and not simply subject an entire generation of Americans to living without reproductive freedom and the loss of other rights, we're going to have to expand, unpack, and unstack the Supreme Court of the United States.
That's right.
And I'm proud to help lead that effort. I'm proud that this campaign had the support of so many wonderful, powerful women like Nancy Pelosi, Anna Eshoo, Doris Matsui. About 60% of the California House Democrats, men, women, in every caucus in our delegation are supporting me because they believe that I'm the progressive that can make progress in the Senate. Thank you very much for your time.
Woo-hoo!